The newest map is coming to the Hunter Call of the Wild today. It's release day for the New England Mountains Reserve, and typically that would mean we're doing a quick guide video, but due to the short time for early access, coupled with the fact that it is real life hunting season as well, I've not had the time to put in, and I feel like it would be disingenuous to make a guide when I really don't know the map all that well. So instead, we are headed out for yet another hunt today. We do, I think, have a decent loadout that would be a part of those normal quick guide videos, and we'll try to continue to learn today and try to find out some good spots. And straight away, we get to see what is potentially the weakest part of this loadout, the 303. Now, we'll go ahead and take this moose and talk about the entire loadout, and what I've come up with for this map is a 4-gun loadout consisting of naturally the 303, the 12-gauge pump just because it's a base game weapon, the 243 handgun, and of course the 22 Virant. What this loadout allows you to do is either carry every collar that would be necessary for this map, or you can fit the 300 in here too. There's room for an entire 5th weapon. However, I find that I don't like carrying 5 weapons. It's easier to get confused, shoot animals with the wrong gun, and I find that the 303 does well enough on moose and black bear, but if you are focusing on those particular species, I probably would consider swapping something out or carrying that 5th gun just to have that extra bit of firepower. Now, one of the many goals that we have for today's hunt is going to be opening up the map and just taking a look at where we are when we're finding a lot of animals. And I think this spot probably is one of those areas. We've got moose out here, there were fox tracks. I honestly had no idea there were pheasants there until just before he took off. And I think it might be our first gold pheasant on the New England Mountains map, but we will take a quick look at that. And nice that we got to use the 12-gauge shotgun as well, because that is another thing. I just want to get to use the entire loadout today and sort of show what everything is actually for. I think it's fairly obvious, but there are a lot of species on this map, and I guess the point is to show that each weapon is actually necessary. These opportunities seem to be pretty infrequent here on this map. Most times when I find a bobcat, it is already fleeing, and I do find that the terrain on this map is largely similar to Hirschfelden a lot of times. If you're not in a field like this or right by a lake, you are spooking stuff, and I think the reason it works a little better here than on Hirschfelden is you've got things like the pheasants, which of course Hirschfelden now has, but you've got the quail, you've got the rabbits, all these things that you have the potential to shoot when really you intentionally want to spook them anyway, plus the small game, which just doesn't flee that fast, your foxes and things like that you can get on the run as they're going away, and bobcats do fall into that category a bit, but it is nice to just catch them out in the open and be able to take a nice broadside shot instead of trying to line up a fleeing shot. Still a silver, but a reason to use the 243, and I think that already leaves us with only the 22 Virant that we haven't fired, so that's working out well. This could be an opportunity for the 22 Virant in the past, but really in this case, other than the fact that we did kill that diamond green-winged tail with a 22 by pure luck, it's not really the point of it. It's more so for turkeys in the distance, rabbits in the distance, things of that nature, more so than flying ducks. Now, another thing that very often in the quick guide videos we'd go over was times, and I feel like that's less relevant on this map and probably any map going forward, since drink times have been consolidated. Now, with new species, potentially comes a new drink times, but on a map like this where there are no new species that actually drink, there's nothing to really discuss as for them, but I still find myself kind of gravitating to whitetail and moose drink time, because there's not much else to go for during the daylight. The fox species, both gray fox and red fox, drink at 1700. Of course, whitetail drink 8 to 12 and moose drink 12 to 1600. And that's probably going to be the time frame I'll focus on, that real life window of about 2 hours from 8 to 1600. And just because it took so long to get back over here, the whitetail are back in their spot, and we might as well go ahead and try to take another buck. Gonna go for a back in the next shot there, and one thing I have noticed, I think animals are fleeing a little bit quicker after the shots, which may make it tougher to, do grinds for any of these species. Now, we were able to take 2 moose from the same herd pretty easily with the 308, but that's semi-automatic. Just that little extra fraction that it takes to work the bolt and chamber another round may result in a lot more fleeing shots or a lot slower grinds for those things. And it could be still, you can kind of time your shot with the animation when the animal's drinking. That sort of allows you to buy an extra second as they sort of lift their heads after drinking, but just a thing I've noticed with this update that probably will very soon become relevant as grinds start with the moose, the whitetail, and maybe even the black bear on this map. As for that better buck, a 216 score, I really do like the new models. They look more like whitetail deer. I hope more of this sort of thing happens in the future as well. Just minor changes that make a huge difference, especially when it's one of the more hunted species in the entire game. And since it is whitetail drink time, I thought we'd head over to the one spot that I really am confident calling a hotspot on this map. And on the way, we've got a herd of moose, and actually, an aggressive bull. I've been waiting to see that, so we'll go ahead and sort of let him do his thing. I'm actually going to let him attack us once, because I think they continue to do it. That is so intriguing. The animation is super detailed. So will he continue to attack? That is the question. Looks like he will. And then, we can try to get our lung shot in there, and we actually got a heart shot. That was kind of neat. It almost killed us. I think you've got 4 hits, and we sort of got a double on that first one. He sort of hit us and then in running past us, damaged us again. That was kind of cool. Been waiting for that to happen. And actually on a decent bull, a 211 score. Heart shot him there at 12 meters. Fitting. And you know, I mentioned the 303 kind of being the weak point of this loadout. It's the one thing that's not, you know, great for every species on this map. You'd like, as I mentioned, that little bit of extra firepower of like a 300 or a 338, but when you can make the shots, if you can hit the heart on the moose, it works just fine. But to get back on task, this was the lake where we had our piebald doe and diamond buck in the first video on this map. And by now it's a little bit depleted. We've shot a number of whitetail here, of course, coming back after shooting the buck since we didn't get the doe initially. And we, in coming back here several times, have seen a pretty consistent trend. We saw the moose resting. There's always the deer here, often a couple of flocks of ducks, and usually a black bear or a bobcat. There's just a lot of diversity in this one area, and I don't think it's just this lake. I would say really all the big lakes in this area are quite good, and I would definitely recommend checking them out. We actually even had the piebald buck. That would have been somewhere on the way from this outpost up, maybe in here. It was just on a hillside just on our way during the first live stream of the map. So a really good area to check out in general. Fantastic for whitetail, and obviously there's a lot of moose up here too. And you always have that opportunity of stumbling into some of the small game. But as for our buck, we'll take a quick look. I think it's going to be a silver, but even still, a decent silver. Missed gold by 0.14. Almost got there. And I think now we'll probably move on to looking for some moose. Now, this is, I think, what's so difficult about finding hotspots on this map. A lot of the best areas are along the rivers and creeks. If you run the entire thing during whitetail drink time or moose drink time, every couple hundred meters you're going to stumble into some, and it really is tough to kind of nail down one spot as being a hotspot. The entire thing is really good, and it takes a long time to go through, but you'll find a ton of animals. So finally, our opportunity to use the 22 environment arrives in the form of a whole flock of turkeys just resting down here in the trees. And I don't know if that's the only gobbler. They're about the same size, so I guess it won't matter. We'll just take the one that's in the open. And just to get to actually fire, and like I said, there's a lot of things on this map that you'd actually want to use the 22 for, but I think turkeys are high up on that list, especially because you can hunt some of those other species in other ways. You naturally would flush things like pheasants and quail. The ducks you can set up on with a blind and decoys and all that. Turkeys, I guess you could do the same, but I feel like that's done a lot less than some of the waterfowl species and stuff like that. And at least we got to fire every weapon, as we're kind of looking for some new moose spots. Got that out of the way, and we can continue trying to explore for that. And I will show on the map where this is, kind of in between the outpost up here in the far northeast and the one in the center of the area that I already talked about in Champney Ridge. But this guy is going to be maybe a gold. 4.28 actually got him in a pretty decent pose there. Maybe an opportunity for a screenshot that we typically wouldn't get. I don't know if you could believe that's flying. Their feet would kind of look different, but we'll go with it. And we'll just continue our way down through here. I'm thinking the amount of moose that we were seeing, as we have a bear out there now, while we were looking for whitetail around here, is probably good for moose too. And I don't know that I've passed through here in moose drink time, so I wanted to give it a try. And I would say at least this is a decent sign. Couple of bull moose down there, including another level 1. Hold on. And a piebald cow. So I said earlier, we did manage with the 308 to take 2 moose in one spot. We'll see if we can manage it again here with these 2. I really want to take that level 1. It's so odd to me that we went a really long time without having one, and suddenly we're getting them all over the place. Now the challenge may be actually getting the shot at the level 1, because obviously we're going to take the piebald first, and moose don't actually do a lot of drinking. They kind of do a lot of standing around and doing basically anything else. So I guess we'll just hope for the best, and if we got to track down the level 1, we can. What we may do is at least get him spotted, and then when the piebald stops doing that, and then we have to respot the level 1, we can get her hopefully in the heart. And did we hit the 3? I think we clipped the level 3 as it ran by, because it looked like we had the shot just fine. And I even saw blood fly. The piebald's dead, so that's the good news. Actually, she is laying right there, but we were like a fraction of an inch from getting that shot. I think we hit almost like the very back end of the level 3. We'll look for blood and see what's going on. And like I said, I think we can track down the level 1, but we timed everything right. I think we had the shot placement right. It just didn't quite work out with the level 3 taken off. But a piebald moose, I want to say the second time we've seen a piebald cow moose since the new models. Of course, that was a part of the handgun update, so they've had these for a while. But let's take a look in the inspect option here in the harvest screen. I like that a lot. I've always found it odd that even the female animals have like a spot for the antlers. You can sort of see it there, and it's only the rares. Like, I don't think commons have that, and it might just be something to do with having the same skin, but a very nice looking moose. I really just appreciate how much kind of fluffier they are, because they're an animal that lives in such cold environments all the time. They need to be, and in the past that didn't really show up. Now it really does. Let's tax that, even though this, I should mention, is still early access at the time I'm recording this, even though it is release day, so we won't be keeping this, but still worth taxing it and throwing it in the lodge at the end. As for our very tiny moose, he is hopefully headed off that direction somewhere, and is there any sign of blood? There is. From the 470 to 545 kg one, so we just hit the wrong moose. He's not going to die, and we can worry about finding the much more trophy-worthy level 1. So just real quick as we are passing through here, got another drink zone at another lake here. This is actually the lake that we shot the whitetail at, and we've got some moose here as well. The problem is I don't think we're going to be shooting anything, because we are still, or were still, on the tracks of the level 1. I have no idea where they went. They had clearly no intention of coming back to the lake, and I hope it doesn't turn into the piebald doe all over again, especially being in this spot, because I know there's bobcats around, because they kept on spooking the herd of deer as they were fleeing. You would think at some point they would just stop and drink somewhere nervous, but apparently they're still on the move. In fact, actually, they're over there, which is really interesting. It could just be luck that they happen to be drinking nervous by an actual body of water, but we've seen many times since the kind of changes to the nervous state, animals could drink when nervous literally anywhere, or rest anywhere when nervous, and feed as well. But I wonder if it's maybe been kind of fixed to where if they're going to drink nervous, they're actually at water. I hope so. By the way, there's actually a lot of moose here, but we'll try to get the level 3 too, because obviously he's wounded. But the level 1 is going to be our priority, and probably we're asking for this to go poorly since it did last time. Let's see what we can manage. The 3 is drinking actively, or at least he was. I think that's going to be a lung shot. The 1's going down, and the 3's going down. Cool. Second time's the charm, and we might have learned something here about the nervous state. I didn't see that or hear that talked about anywhere with this update, but man, would that do a lot for realism. It always has been such like an immersion killer to see something drinking in the middle of a road or a field or something. And again, it could be luck. I don't want to say that it's definitely been changed, but it seems odd to me that they would go that far. I mean, 600 meters and just end up right at the far side of the lake? Hoping for the best anyway. So both went down basically side by side. And I just want to know what actually happened here. He was on the move, sort of. Oh my goodness. That might be a first for us. Can we not be sideways here if we go into the inspect screen and reset him? In the antler. I didn't even know you could do that. Well, now at some point we have to try to kill one with an antler shot because I think that could be hilarious, but go figure. It really... This thing is never exactly accurate to what happened. But looking at this, it didn't even hit him. It maybe just hit like an outside sort of corner of the hitbox of the antlers, but I really didn't think you could hit them. Oh, that's neat. I hadn't noticed this. Maybe it only shows up when you shoot multiple times. But you've got the ability in this screen to go to the next shot window. I've been really impressed with all the changes to the harvest screen. They've done a fantastic job of making it as informational as possible and allowing you to actually learn from what you do. That's really cool. But then finally, I think what's going to be our last kill, because we ended up tracking that a little longer than I intended, another level 1 bull moose. And I can promise, because he's a 2x2, he's going to score quite low. 48.74 type of low, in fact. Right along there at 99 meters. Of course, the first shot impacted the other bull. And I guess we'll tax that too, even though, again, not something we're actually going to get to keep. But we'll go back to the trophy lodge. We'll take a look at our piebald cow moose real quick. And that will be it, I suppose, for our hunt here on release day of the New England Mountains. And as far as kind of finding out new spots goes on this map, I feel like we did learn a little bit about moose. That kind of Champney Ridge area is really good, obviously, for whitetail and moose. Too bad we couldn't get the piebald to go aggressive, but that does... I think that would be realistic, like the hair standing up on the back of their neck and stuff. Ends up looking a little funny in the trophy lodge. I think with antlers that would be fantastic, but I hadn't noticed that on the others. And the albinos aren't as, like, fluffy. And we noticed that with the foxes too. The dark red has a much shorter coat than the other fur types. I kind of like that there is that variance. But anyway, we'll throw the level 1 up here somewhere if we can. I guess, well, you know what we can do? We had a level 1 moose. Let's do that in this multi-mount instead. A lot of you guys have been asking to get to see the new multi-mount, and this is it. A moose and a quail. And I don't know if we went through all the poses in a video or not, but we'll do it here just briefly. And by the way, you can see, too, with this guy, similar to the piebald, all the hair kind of being much longer than with the albino. Again, I actually find that neat that there is that variance, but lots of poses for this. I still can't decide if I'm going to use this in the main lodge or not. It is a male quail, which they're the ones that make diamond now, and we'll have to hope to get a diamond at some point, and then maybe consider actually doing this multi-mount in there, but it is actually kind of neat. I was sort of hoping for, like, a bear and a moose, but I don't hate the idea of what they're going for here with the creativity. But anyway, found a couple of new spots today. Again, as I mentioned with that map, the creeks and the rivers are just loaded, and I do think they're the best areas overall, and that makes it tough to do a proper hotspot. But what I would recommend is, as you're unlocking your map, look for those kind of areas where you can find zones, and then I would take the time to run the creeks and the rivers. We've seen a lot of cool stuff along them, and I think it's a good spot to kind of begin hunting on the new New England map. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Best of luck on your hunts on the new map today, and I'll see you next time.